And so we believe very, very firmly that anyone can be an entrepreneur.
If you just bought and held the top 10 stocks from today and you held them for 10 years, I guarantee you'd more than double your money in the 10 years.
Wow. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Wealth Within update. My name is Jim Beach of School for Startups Radio, and joining me, as always, is Dale Gillham of Wealth Within. Dale, how you doing this week? It's good to talk to you.
Look, I'm fantastic, mate. It's been a great week. The market's still a bit up and down, but I'm fantastic.
I thought Friday when it closed, down 3 or 4 points, that it epitomized what you said in our last video, that we didn't expect much excitement out of the market last week, and they delivered. It was a sideways week, just as you said it would be.
Yeah, I mean, it was up a little bit, but it really did fail to rise above the high from a month ago. And it was really interesting because the NASDAQ and S&P both rose above their highs of about a month ago. And so to me, you know, it was a really funny week. And when you see different markets like the Dow not rising above a previous high, but the S&P and the NASDAQ do, that's called intermarket divergence. It basically means the market's a little bit out of sync with each other. In theory, all three should have risen through their previous highs, but obviously the 30 stocks in the Dow didn't do as well as the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. But you know, both of those markets, the NASDAQ and S&P, were both above their highs for the week. But their high was Wednesday, and they closed down on Friday, as you mentioned, which really was weakness, and there's a lot of indecision still in the market because most of the move was that Monday, or last Monday's move. I think it was 911 points, I think, and simply on speculation that there was a COVID vaccine good news. So it really is running on news rather than solid fact at the moment.
Well, let's talk about that Wednesday rumor in just a second. But when the markets diverge like this, does it indicate anything, or is it just sort of an interesting little trivial tidbit of knowledge?
Look, it always indicates things, but when you're getting a divergence, it really means the market's still, how do I say it, confused. It really doesn't know what direction it wants to take, and that's part of the issue there with you know, with both the S&P and the NASDAQ rising up. The tech stocks are moving the market more so than anything else, and that's the issue that we're actually seeing.
Well, let's talk about that rumor on Wednesday. My question is, are those two guys going to jail? I mean, it just seems like it. So let's talk, or give it some specificity. On Wednesday, we woke up that Moderna, a pharmaceutical company, had a significant drug in the pipeline. The stock went up tremendously. By Friday, we found out that the CFO and who was the other guy? Maybe the COO had sold $30 million worth of shares, and now we find out there's no drug. What do you think? Yeah, look, you know, it was up 89%, this stock, since the 1st of May. So you've got to think that there's people in the know about that, you know, up 89%, you know, in 20-something days. And, you know, they had news of encouraging coronavirus vaccine results. So it really did gap up nearly 30% during the week on those promising results. But you're right, you know, at the same time, the CFO and Chief Medical Officer, or the CMO, were selling $30 million worth of shares. So, but you know, they're not going to get in trouble for that, because as long as it's transparent and it's not seen to be insider trading. They did it on the open market. They didn't do it behind the doors, if that makes sense, or doing a crossing. So they exercised their options and then sold the next day. So as long as they do it above board, that's fine. And as any shareholder would, you know, you want to sell your shares at the best possible time to reap the most amount of benefit for you. And, you know, being up that much in this month is certainly an encouraging sign for somebody who's got shares and thinking, yeah, I'd like to take a bit of profit at the moment. But right now the stock's currently up 50% for May, you know, and is rising on nothing more than speculation, as you
you said, you know, and Moderna has no marketed product, so it's not making any money at the moment. So how does it rise other than on speculation? And you know, somebody said to me yesterday on a chat thing, and they said, you know, they talk about buy on speculation and sell on confirmation, and I went, no, that's a bit backwards. I never buy on speculation like this because it is fraught with danger. But hey, just sit back and watch the show.
Well, I did see that one of the executives claimed that both of them were selling under predetermined, pre-existing sales programs, and that the sale would have happened if the stock had gone down 20% that day. You know, that's just, a lot of people say that. My senator is saying that right now. My Georgia senator is being investigated for the exact same situation. And it's easy to say that it's pre-programmed selling, but boy, does it look suspicious and make for great inquiries in the Senate and maybe at the SEC. So how do you see that playing out, just as a side note to history eventually?
Look, I think it's just going to be a side note. I think what you're seeing right now is a lot of people covering their backsides, you know, because they're profiting from that. And end of the day, you know, the market in general, in terms of, you know, the wider, broader market, they like to see everything very, very transparent. But at the end of the day, these guys are about making money for themselves, as you and I are. You know, we're here to make ourselves wealthy, so we take the opportunities as they present. So whether they would have exercised their options and sold if the stock had fallen heavily, I don't know about that. I probably wouldn't have done that either. I would not have done that. If you've got any control over that, you wouldn't have done it. So no. You know, I think it's just going to be a little footnote in history that this happened on this day and this stock did exit, and so move on next. Nothing to see here, basically.
But on the other hand, we got 900 points of market appreciation undeservedly. The market shouldn't have appreciated. So again, it sets us up for that bigger fall that you've been talking about for quite a while. Does that make any sense? Does that possibly play into a larger fall here in the next week or two or three?
I often say, you know, there's a saying in Australia, you know, one day doesn't make a sheep station, and I'm sure there's similar statements in the US, as one day is pretty much irrelevant on the bigger scheme of things. And I know retail investors are getting real itchy feet and having a fear of missing out, or that FOMO that we do talk about, and they're saying, well, you're getting it wrong. The market's not falling away. You've been saying the market's bearish for so long. At the end of the day is we can only look at past history and say, what did the market do in the past when things like this happen? And a lot of the retail investors don't really understand the risk that's in the market and why it's moving up. And I think it's moving up on a lot of these retail investors trying to bottom pick and pushing it up. But if you look over the last month or so, and I do talk about this when I get into my charts a little bit later on after our chat here, so I'm going to get in and talk about Moderna, I'm going to talk about Boeing, I'm going to talk about a few other stocks that have done really, really well. But when you see the market hasn't really done anything over the last 4 or 5 weeks, the US market's done, I think, 2-3%. And that means the market's not strong. That means the big end of town, the big money is not pushing it high because they're not sure exactly what's going to happen. So I still think there's a good probability that the market's going to fall and challenge that March 23rd low. And depending on what actually happens in news and announcements, it could go a lot lower. It could go right through that low by another 10 or 20%. Right now, I am starting to see the pendulum swing to being a little bit more bullish, but I'm not convinced yet. That's really what's happening. The market's not convincing me it's bullish.
You mentioned Boeing, talking about a company that I never see coming back now. The travel market's going to be the slowest to return, and we have thousands of airplanes sitting in tarmacs and in deserts in California. Saw some amazing video. It looked like an endless, parking lot of airplanes. How does Boeing ever come back, and how are they justifying their 15% rise here in the last month? Up 15% in the last month, isn't it?
Yes. Well, they're up
almost 60% for the year.
Yeah, they're up 14.61% just last week. So, and they're still down 2.47% for the month, and they're down 57.78% for the calendar year. So that makes it, in most people's terms, really, really cheap. But you're right, as how is it going to get out of this? Now, Boeing's a very, very old company, and it's been very, very well managed over that time. You know, you don't get to the status of Boeing without having good management behind it. But it just announced a reduction in about 400 jobs, and that's what saw it go up. You know, to me, getting rid of jobs and it sees it going up. Now, you're right, there's a lot of planes put in mothballs that may not be used for years, so therefore orders for brand new planes will be delayed and or cancelled with no new orders coming in. But it just depends on how they can trim their sails and adjust their direction, because it doesn't mean they can't be doing other things. And one of the things they're working on is with NASA and competing with SpaceX over crewed spaceflight. Now, it looks like at this point in time they're losing that race. They did get most of the money from NASA. I think they got about 60% of the money that NASA allocated, and SpaceX got about 40% of it. But the crewed space flights, it's hard to say. SpaceX seem to be beating Boeing at this point in time, but you never know. They may come back and they may do something else, or they may go down a different path to make money. But right now I can't see any reason for it being up last week 14.67%. So right now at this point in time it is looking a little better, and it could be a good stock to buy, because eventually good stocks stop falling. And the best time to buy is when nobody wants them, and that's really what Buffett talks about, you know, buying doom, selling boom, and it doesn't get much doomier for Boeing at the moment. So it could be a nice little dark horse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, the only positive I see there is that with all of the current animosity toward foreign manufacturing of our medical chain, supply chain, and all of that, I don't think that there's any way that any administration would let Boeing really truly go out of business and lose Americans' airplane industry. So I think that because of the strategic military importance of that, the company will survive, but I just think the stock right now is a definite sell. Let's move on. We're running out of time. Another round of stimulus. Do we need it? Is it a good idea? I'm hearing a lot of businesses can't reopen because the employees won't come back to work. Is stimulus what that situation needs?
Yeah, we're finding exactly the same here in Australia, with a lot of the casual part-time employees not going back to work because of the stimulus package. Here it's more profitable for them to stay at home than go to work, which I think is crazy, how the government worked that one out. Even though I do think the Australian government has done a fantastic job during COVID, and I think the New Zealand government has done an awesome job as well. And you know, Trump, love him or hate him, he's done some really good things with the COVID, and other things not so good. So, but I just think, you know, a fourth round of stimulus, geez, if you keep handing out money, people keep expecting it, and that's really where I have a challenge. Is, you know, right now it's about time to get that whole old American spirit back out and said, let's just dig in and go for it, and let's build the economy up again. And I think they need to be encouraging small businesses to grow, expand, people to start new businesses. There's a lot of opportunity right now in this. I know we talked about it about a month or two ago, how there's a big paradigm shift in the market at the moment, but it's across the whole economy. There's so many opportunities that COVID-19 has brought for new businesses, new products, new services. Let's go out and chase those. And so to me, a stimulus should be more around creating new jobs, creating new businesses, not necessarily supporting those that are unemployed. Although I do feel for people who are unemployed and made unemployed because of COVID-19, which has not been their fault. So we still need to support those. But let's get business going. Let's get out there and have that big American let's go get 'em attitude, and that, you know, entrepreneurial spirit. Let that get that happening. And that's really what I would suggest. So, but they are expecting unemployment to peak in June, and they are expecting it to be up around 20%, which is what, with last month it was about 15%, so it's about another 30% increase. But it should peak in the next few weeks, the unemployment, and we'll see what happens after that. If that starts to level out and then start to come down, I think maybe the stimulus they've already done has worked, so maybe no need for a fourth one.
Well, I certainly hope so. You know, I'm paying a lot of attention to my friends and the things I'm hearing. And in the last 3 or 4 days, I know 3 people that got great jobs and, you know, businesses that are growing and expanding. So the situations, the opportunities are out there. What do you see for the next week as we wrap up our time together, Dale?
Look, I'm not discounting the market to keep going sideways, but it can keep going up for another 2-3 weeks, probably into mid-June. But I really do think the peak that we're going to have, or the short-term peak, is going to happen within this next 2 to 4 weeks. And by the end of June, we'll start to see a downward move. Now, this is the, 6 for one, half dozen the other. Is the peak going to be higher than where it is right now? And if it is, then that augurs well for the move down into maybe July, August, not being very, very deep. But if the market can't make new highs over the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'm not talking new all-time highs, I'm just talking about highs for the last 2-3 months. If it moves up maybe another 10 or 15% in the next couple of weeks, then that could be a bullish sign for the market moving long term. But if it stays underneath where it is now, around where it is now, I think when it does start to fall away, the fall's going to be a lot deeper, and it will challenge that March low that I was talking a bit about there. So to me, we're still sitting on the fence, and it's a line ball.
All right. Thank you again, as always, Dale. Make sure you check out his book, Accelerate Your Wealth. It's your money, your choice, and find him at wealthwithin.us. Dale, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks a lot.
Nice talking to you again, Jim. Take care.
Please remember that this report is an educational tool. While Wealth Within holds an Australian financial services license, the information featured in this program is general in nature and therefore should not be relied upon. Before making any investment decisions, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your investment decisions are appropriate for you. We hope that you enjoy this week's report.
Okay, I think I'm getting sick of saying this, but again, last week was an interesting week on the market. We saw, Monday took off over 900 points, and I was getting questions from people saying, has your opinion changed on the market with the market being up over 900 points? And we need to put things in context. There's a couple of things with the market is one day doesn't mean anything in the scheme of things. It's just one day. The market is also running on a lot of speculation and a lot of news at the moment, and that volatility that's created by that means there's a lot of false triggers happening, and so we need to keep that in context. To me, the market's about momentum. It's about having lots of days in a direction, not just one day in a direction. So as I said to those people that did ask the question, one day doesn't mean much to me, but what we're seeing is Monday it did move up. It jumped up on news of that stock Moderna that actually did some research, or had put out some research, saying they might have a coronavirus vaccine, or it might be working, and the market just rose on that speculation. There's nothing a lot to support it. There's not a lot of substance underneath that, as we talked about with Jim a little bit earlier. I mean, Moderna, he doesn't even distribute any product at the moment. So why did it rise? And it's a lot of speculation at this point in time. And I think what I really would like to stress with everybody is stay away from speculation. And there's an old rule in trading: trade on confirmation, not speculation. Trade on what you know and can confirm, not what you think might happen. And that's what too many amateurs do. They just trade on what they think might happen, not what is actually happening. But let's go and have a look at the Dow Jones and see exactly what happened, so that we can actually make an assessment of what might happen over the coming weeks and or months. Now, on your screen is a weekly chart of the Dow Jones, and what I've done here is I've just got my nice little chart here. I want to share with you a couple of things. You can see here, that's the low of that 23rd of March. So we saw the market move very, very solidly down with the coronavirus. It hit this week here of that 27th March, or the week ending Friday the 27th of March, pushed down and had a big strong bar, then it had a weak bar. It traded down. It had another big strong bar. So 2 bars out of 3 were strong. This one pushed lower and a little bit higher, but it showed weakness because it was pushing down. Weak bar, strong bar, weak bar. So now we're getting a lot more weakish bars through this period here, and it's going sideways, 3 weeks up. And right now the Dow, if we look at that from what it closed here in the 10th of April, it is only up 2.8, roughly 2-3% on what it was several weeks ago. We're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks ago. It's up 3%. So that's what I'm saying, is the Dow's not showing us a lot of strength at this point in time. And even here, when we look at down on the daily chart, you'll see here how the market had that big high there at 24,764. This one hit earlier on Monday. It was 24,708. Wednesday, Thursday it went up to 24,718, so slightly higher, but it fell away on Friday. A lot of indecision through here, and this is what I'm looking at here. And then when you see the intermarket divergence between the S&P 500 making a higher high, the Dow didn't go above that high of 24,764. You can see that again, 24,718. So it didn't break through it, whereas the S&P and the NASDAQ both broke above that, as I was saying to Jim, and it broke above it, which means they're a little bit more bullish. Be interesting to see if we do get any sort of weakness through this week, then it's unlikely the market is going to break that high for some time. That said, I do think the Dow could be moving up for the next 2, maybe 3 weeks, maybe into mid-June. Again, it still does need to come down again. And right now, it's not wanting to push up strongly, which suggests the market's still very, very nervous. The market is not thinking bullish, or the mass market is not thinking bullish. The people that are thinking more bullish are the more, as I say, the amateurs who are riding on speculation, trying to make money out of speculating rather than good solid economics and metrics around the stocks. So right now, I can't see a huge lot of positive news on the Dows. I'm not suggesting it's not going to go up. As I said, it could go up for the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, but 2 to 3 weeks probably more likely if it does go up. But if it starts moving down now, then I think we're going to get more of a downward move to try and challenge that low in March. And again, I'm still not discounting that low in March won't be broken. But what's happening now is that pendulum between bearish and bullish is moving a lot closer to being much more bullish than being much more bearish. A few 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, I was more bearish than bullish. Now I'm moving to being a little bit more bullish in my thinking at this point in time. But let's go and have a look at your questions for us for this week. Now, the first question we have today is from MiniMoss65. He says, have your opinion changed now after the 911 point gain? I think I just sort of answered that a few minutes ago when I was talking a little bit about the market. The answer is absolutely not. It does look a little bit better. And again, a lot of people tend to overestimate one day on a stock or a market, and they jump in, and the streets are littered with people that speculate on that sort of stuff. And what I mean by littered is they jump in after they see a stock or market move up very, very strongly in a day. Then they jump in thinking they're going to get in on this big rise, only for it to turn around and go the other way. And that's sort of what happened with the Dow last week. It gapped up. It went up that 911 points, and it just sort of fell away a little bit towards the end of the week. But thanks for asking the question. Another one we've got is from Jackie, who says, will this 911 points rally accelerate the fall in the near future from, say, a technical point of view? Much better question, that one. To me, that's really interesting, because there's an old saying that what goes up fast comes down fast. And again, one day doesn't make in Australia, we talk about one day doesn't make a sheep station, but one day doesn't make you rich, and one day doesn't make you broke. It's the collective days that put together to create trends over weeks, months, and or years. One day doesn't really make a new trend. So will one day make the market accelerate the fall downward? No, I wouldn't suggest it would do that. Again, for the week, it was a little bit of an indecisive week, where the market did take off earlier in the week, closed a bit lower at the end of the week. But it did start to change my view that the market might be a little bit more bullish than bearish. That's really what it's about. It's not going to accelerate the fall. If I saw, 2, 3, 4, 5 days and it just went vertical, then I would suggest when it does turn, it would fall faster. But right now, I don't think there's any reason to think it will. Again, but like I just said before, I think there's still a chance that the March 23rd low will be broken. If we do start seeing the market be bearish right now, or if for the next week or two it starts falling away, it will challenge that low. And how deep and how far it will go will depend on the market and the economics around the market. There's a lot of companies have reported their earnings. They're nothing fantastic, but they're nothing super bad. I think the worst earnings reports are going to be in the next quarter, so I think we might see a big move down towards the end of the year if we don't get good results. But hey, who knows? But thanks for sending those questions in. I'm going to go and have a look at some stocks now. That were the couple of questions that we have. But if you do have a question on a stock in the US, for any Australian viewers, please don't put any questions on Australian stocks, and always the US stocks. I'm looking at that. If you do put any Australian stocks, I'm going to ignore them on this video. But let's go and have a look at some stocks. I want to look at Intel. I'm going to look at Moderna, and I'm going to look at Boeing, which we talked about in the report with Jim as well. But on your screen right now, you'll see Intel. And the reason why I wanted to bring up Intel, because I do like a lot of these chip manufacturers, which I've mentioned before, and Nvidia has been doing very, very well over this year. And you can't forget Intel. Look at it, it's been beautiful. It did get hit a little bit in that March drop, but it's doing very, very nicely. These are the sorts of stocks. There's a few technology stocks that I'd be looking at right now for the market moving forward. This is looking really good this past week, where the Dow and the S&P and NASDAQ didn't look super, super fantastic, but a little bit more bullish. This looks great to me. So I do like Intel as a stock, and if you are looking for good stocks for your portfolio, then you might put this one on your watch list, because I do think it looks really, really nice. Let's look at this one. This one's, as I said, Moderna is the one that really, really did jump, and you can see this massive move up, and I'll just drag it out. So the weekly chart's there on the right, and if I put my little tool on it from the prior week, it gapped right up 34, 35, odd 30, 31, sorry, nearly 31%, but it closed only up 3.4% for the week. So, and if I go to the daily chart, you'll actually see what, sorry, not that one, I need this one. You can actually see what happened on the Monday from a gap from the Friday, just gapped up and then traded south. What was going on here is people, it was speculation. So people, they put out an announcement, they gapped up, and because simple people thought, wow, this is going on. And I think this is market manipulation doing really, really well. I do know right now I wouldn't be getting into this stock. And if you did buy this stock, you would have bought it on pure speculation. It's been running pretty high through here, but I would suggest, based on what I'm seeing, it does need to fall away. And this is where that other question we had, you know, does the big move up 911 points suggest a bigger fall or a faster fall on the other side? It would on this stock, because we're just seeing the verticalness. If I use my trend line, you'll see what I mean. If I just do here's the angle that it was traveling on for a while, and now we're looking at the angle it's traveling on than this. So the faster that angle, the faster the fall is going to happen, and eventually those angles will wear out. And at this point in time, I don't necessarily like this stock for a portfolio. I think we need to see a retracement, and at that point they'll tell me whether this is long-term bullish or bearish. But hey, some people may have made some money out of this, and I know a couple of people that in the company do. They've sold some of their shares, as we talked about with Jim. Looking at Boeing, Boeing looks really, really interesting. Again, this is a really, really good stock on the marketplace. If we go back, you can see how good this stock does. It beautifully trends well, and it's got hit very, very hard with the coronavirus outbreak, falling down to that low of $89. And remember, this stock was over $400 back up here not too much long ago, and we're talking about a whole lot of stuff with Boeing in last year, and this stock's really fallen out of bed. But good stocks like Boeing. Is Boeing going to exist past coronavirus panics? Yeah, absolutely. Will Boeing adjust to what's been going on post coronavirus pandemic? Yes, it will. Will it make money into the future? Yes, it will. But when's it going to go up? That's the point. But looking at this, we're talking about really bad news. No airlines are flying. Airlines are cancelling orders. You know, there's planes being put into mothballs, so they won't be updating planes as regularly or in the time frame that Boeing would normally expect an airline to upgrade planes. We're seeing airlines in trouble. We're going to be seeing airlines going bankrupt. And right now, this is holding, really is holding. But let's go and have a look at the weekly chart. And you can see on the weekly chart, it did have the big move up from March low, but it's drifted down. I won't get excited until it breaks above that level there, about that that high of 186.48. But it does look a little bit better, this stock. But I don't understand why it went up strongly last week on no positive news at all. But you can see here it did. So we're looking there. That's last Thursday, or the week before. Sorry, there was the Friday, and it just gapped up on some news. So it really is no rhyme or reason in why Boeing is actually rising at this point in time. The last one I wanted to cover was Costco, because you can see another one. This is another one that just keeps moving on. People do like Costco. It trends beautifully well. It does look a good stock, and I do like some of those good You've got some of those other ones like Lowe's and some of those other retailers, those big retailers that are adjusting to this little bit more online shopping. And you can see we've seen statistics with online shopping going up. But looking at this chart at the moment, it does look a little bit better. Costco does look good. And it'll be another one I'd stick on my watch list for my portfolio for you. So, but thanks for sending in all your questions, and I do hope you've enjoyed my report today. As always, if you do want to ask a question, put them down below on the video. But thanks for watching till the end of the video too. But as I said, but if you do have a question, stick them below. Happy to do that. And remember, US stocks and or other questions that you might have. Now remember, I do these reports every single week with Jim, so hit the subscribe button now and click the bell on the right of it so you know when we go live with our latest reports. For now, I'm Dow Gillham, the Chief Analyst here at Wealth Within. Goodbye, good luck and good trading.